We are back again in our normal seating area, which is slightly more festive. Hi, my name is Jen, and yeah, hello. How you doing? Holidays came up wicked fast. Like I knew they were coming, and then all of a sudden they were just like, in your face. You know. But anyway, that's not what you want to hear. You are here to hear about books or bookish things or etc. In light of the fact that the lovely Gloria McNeely recently did a shout out video for small booktubers, and she was kind enough to mention me within that. Hi. And the fact that I now have some more like newer subscribers, I figured maybe a good introduction would be a book tag. The book tag I have selected is the Get to Know Me book tag. I do not have who it was created by within where I found it. I located it on howlinglibraries.com, but I am going to look around as per usual and find the original creator, and I will post both of that, like where I found it and the original creator, in the description box down below as per usual. Now I assumed that I'd done this tag before because it sounded familiar, and back when I started my channel in like 2020 I did a shit ton of book tags, but I looked through some of my stuff and I don't really see it, so I'm going to guess that this is one of the ones that I looked at initially back in the day and then never actually ended up doing it. If you know differently, tell me I'm a stupid idiot and I have done this before. I'll accept that. I've tried to forget most of 2020 anyway, so the first question within here is, what is your favorite color, and do you have a book in that color? So I have two favorite colors. The first is purple, and I have not that many purple books, but this is one of them, and it is Inkspell by Cornelia Funke. I was doing a rereading of it and never finished. I should probably get on that. And my other favorite color is blue, and for that I have a book I grabbed recently, Call Us What We Carry by Amanda Gorman. It is a book of poetry. A question dos. Describe yourself in 3 book characters. Honestly, I've thought about this before and I think it's a lot easier to describe myself in 3 characters over all of media, including shows and things. Okay, so thinking about it for a little bit. I'm gonna go with 1, Ron Weasley, because I am also extremely afraid of spiders. I constantly feel overshadowed and inferior compared to the others around me, and kind of wish, honestly, that I could... I don't know, that's starting to get too personal, so let's not go there. 2, I guess we'll go with Percy Jackson, because I also have a temper and a mouth on me, and sometimes I don't think before I do or say things, oftentimes, which is not always good. And then 3, Nate from the Truly Devious series. I also write, and I am constantly trying to get out of writing, even though I also really like writing and enjoy it and desperately want to be able to have that as like a career someday, hopefully. But then at the same time, I'm also constantly living in fear of failure and have to deal with that often, and I don't always like being social, even when I do actually like being social and I love my friends and family and stuff, but sometimes I don't like being around anyone. Yeah. I feel like this got a little too personal. Question 3. Hyped books, yay or nay? If yay, what was the most hyped book you ever read? If nay, what was the most hyped book you decided not to read? So, I have kind of a mixed bit of feelings about overly hyped books. There have been a couple of occasions where I have read the overly hyped books, i.e. The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, which is a beautiful, amazingly written book that really had me all in the emotions. Back in, like, I think I read that in 2020. Yeah. So that is one example where things went really well. Another one was the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. I freaking love that series. I can't wait for the 4th book to come out. I can't wait to see where the series goes. I think my enjoyment and love for it surpasses what I felt growing up for Harry Potter, and that is saying a lot because I was fairly obsessed with that for many years. And yeah, so those are like a couple examples of overly hyped books that I went into with middling to high expectations, and they paid off because they were just wonderful experiences to read. I get warm fuzzy feelings when I think about them and think about rereading them, and everything. I discovered 2 new favorite authors, so it's great. For the most part, though, oftentimes when books are really hyped up, they have ended up being fairly disappointing to me, whether they become books that I DNF for various reasons, or books that I went into with extreme high expectations and then those are dashed. Because the book is not as good as I was hoping it would be. It took some twists and turns that were implausible, or were not what I was looking for. Support really toxic relationships, have just straight up poor writing, or they're just not my cup of tea, not something that I was looking for or expecting, or sometimes are downright like upsetting, or could cause in me an existential crisis, which being the age at which I am now and still figuring my shit out, I don't need any help with having an existential crisis on, say, a Tuesday afternoon, because I'm already there. So yeah. So I guess I don't know. I go into overly hyped books with a lot of apprehension now, I guess is what I mean to say, because while I have had a couple of good experiences and really am glad that there was hype for it and that I listened to it, I have also had far more experiences where the hype either didn't pay off for me, or has left me wondering what the hell is everyone else smoking, that they thought that this was amazing and or what is wrong with me, possibly, that everyone else thinks this is amazing and I'm just over here like, what the hell did I just read? Why is this not working for me? What was the most hyped book you decided not to read? Well, I guess recently we're gonna go with Where the Crawdads Sing. That is one of the most hyped books recently that, like, it seemed like half the world is, or half of America anyway, is shrieking their damn heads off about. And I couldn't be arsed. So, yeah. Question number 4. Recommend one book. Holy crap. Recommend one book per season. For spring, I am going to recommend Anne of Green Gables, because I think it is a good coming of age story. I think it's beautifully written. It has some wonderful descriptions. And it is a book that appreciates the changing seasons and nature very much, and people changing like the seasons. Yeah, so I would say it's a good book for spring because it has very much bits about nature in it, and it's also just something that's nice to help you feel like the world is awakening again. It's a good book to help you usher into that feeling, basically, I guess is what I'm getting at. That doesn't sound like a good explanation. Anyway, for summer, I would recommend Treasure Island. I read that this summer and I freaking loved it. I went through a pirate phase when I was younger, just all about pirates, and it reawakened that interest in me about pirates and pirate ships and history, about like all that. And it's such an atmospheric book, especially for the summertime, just the high seas and the adventure and just everything. If you are looking to have an adventure while not leaving your seat, I would definitely highly recommend that book. And I think it's a fairly accessible classic because it is a definite page turner. For fall, see, that's a hard one. I think it depends on what you're looking for the fall. If you are looking for something that makes you feel cozy yet has a touch of the bittersweet to it because the year is coming to a close and everything like that, but you also want something that's very like heartwarming and makes you feel good while at the same time having this tinge of like bittersweet to it, I would highly recommend Northern Borders by Howard Frank Mosher. Kind of coming of age story. It basically tells the story of this boy named Tut, who, it's a nickname, his name's Austin. It is basically his boyhood from the age of like 6 until he is 18, when he lives in rural Vermont in the 50s with his grandparents, who had a major impact on his life and development and everything. And it is such a nostalgic book, even if you're like, if you didn't grow up in the 50s, like I wasn't even a thought in my parents' head then. So yeah, it just makes you nostalgic for something you've never experienced before, and it's very cozy, but as it is about the passage of time and, you know, living with your grandparents, especially if you are someone who was very close to your grandparents, it's very heartwarming but also bittersweet. And I think if that's what you're looking for in like your end of the year kind of fall reads, I would definitely recommend that for it. If you are looking for something a lot more spooky and atmospheric, well, Stephen King is always an option, and I will never ever shut up basically about The Shining and how much I love it. But if you are really tired of hearing about Stephen King as the choice for horror, I think you should go with a horror classic, which is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. If you've never read it, or if you just watched the recent show and haven't read it yet, you should definitely read it. It is not a jump scare kind of book. It is an extremely unsettling, creepy kind of book, and it is absolutely beautifully written, completely atmospheric, and yeah, I think either a physical or an audiobook version of it, either are magnificent for the fall if you are looking for something to creep you out of bed. For winter, ooh, for that one, I'm gonna have to say The Girl Who Speaks Bear by Sophie Anderson. I read that last December, and it is such a good book for the season. You can really feel the icy coldness of winter. It has like fairy tales and delicious food descriptions, and basically that's all I really want to ask for a winter read, really, is something that it feels like you could cozy up with in front of a fireplace if you had one, and enjoy it with a cup of tea. It's very fanciful and fantastical and very heartwarming, and yeah. Question 5 is, name one book that wrecked you emotionally. So, I've had a few books completely wreck me emotionally. I think the one I'll talk about, I might have talked about this book before. I read this several years ago, but it is Love Letters to the Dead, and I think it's by Ava DeLera. Basically, it is a young adult book told from letters that the main character is writing to various people, whether they be people that she knows or famous celebrities. She writes to Kurt Cobain. She writes to... oh man. I should remember who the other famous people were, but at the moment Kurt Cobain's the only one that's coming to mind, because Nirvana was her older sister's favorite band, and her older sister unfortunately passed away the year before, and her family is very much kind of broken up at the moment, and she is having a hard time dealing with that, obviously. And these letters are basically her trying to come to terms with that and deal with her grief and guilt and a lot of other things that happened to her around that time. Is just very incredibly emotional, and I'm not someone who usually goes for tear-jerker kind of books, so it's amazing that I even picked this up at all, but I thought the concept of letter writing, which I really enjoy books that are made up of like letters, emails, different forms of media, stuff like that. I think that's something that's really fascinating to me, because as a nosy person, I like reading correspondences. Yeah. But yeah, so I knew that that book was going to be kind of upsetting in general, but I didn't realize at the time how much of an emotional impact it was going to have on me. Sometimes I refer to my sister or my brother. They are not biologically my sister or my brother. They are actually technically my sister-in-law and brother-in-law. They are my husband's siblings. I am an only child, and while they are my siblings of my heart, basically, and I have some very dear best friends who I also kind of consider my siblings as well. I don't really know what it's like to have a sibling, to have somebody else in growing up with you in your life and sharing certain things and memories and family bullshit and stuff like that. I don't really have that experience, and that book laid me the fuck out, because it was like an empathy kind of sadness for the main character, but it was also this more deeper sadness of knowing that realizing and knowing that I was never going to be able to understand the like deep and unending love that the main character had for her older sister and their bond and relationship, and it was just something that I'm never going to get to experience, and never a relationship that I'm never going to understand. And that was a lot. Yeah. Number 6. That's not a 6, that's 5, that's 6. Okay. Name a book that you always recommend. I feel like I am... A book that I always recommend. Well, it depends. I've done a few recommends videos for various things. It's hard to really recommend books sometimes if you don't know people and you don't really know what they're into. But I guess pretty much I don't really shut up about A Christmas Carol. I think that is probably the most accessible classic that exists out there. It's very short. It is funny, it's sweet, it has a very good message, it tries to impart some wisdom. It's a little spooky. It is beautifully written, and I mean, most people I think know it anyway because you've ultimately watched some version of it. Most of us probably the Muppet version, which is the best in my opinion. But if you probably know the story because of the many adaptations or various, I'm sure, Hallmark classics and things that have decided, oh, we're gonna do a take on A Christmas Carol and play with it, but it's not really A Christmas Carol, like that kind of thing too. So I think for the most part, it is the most accessible classic that exists, really, if you want to dip your toes into a classic, or dip your toes into Dickens anyway. Yeah, I think that's the one that I usually recommend of most people. Another one, I probably haven't mentioned it in a while, but another one that I really recommend that everyone pick up is a graphic novel. It is They Called Us Enemy, and it is chiefly by George Takei, who you might know from Star Trek and various other things he's done recently. And oh man, there's also a bunch of other people who are involved in it, and I can't remember their names off the top of my head. Yeah, it's basically a graphic novel memoir of his childhood during World War II, when he and his family were uprooted and sent to the Japanese internment camps in California, because he and his family were and are Japanese American, and it is an infuriating, heartbreaking, heartwarming book. It has it really discusses a part of history that I think a lot of people don't want to like talk about, and yeah, I think it's well done, and the artwork also in there is it's kind of simple, but it's perfect for what it was trying to do. So yeah. Question 7 is, what book would you recommend with tea and cookies? If you were going to sit down and curl up with tea and cookies, I would recommend a murder mystery, and probably a vintage murder mystery. So definitely Agatha Christie, or maybe Dashiell Hamlet, Jesus. Dashiell Hammett, Dorothy Sayers. I've been reading Ngaio Marsh. You could also curl up with Ngaio Marsh, or a Hankaku mystery. I think any of those vintage like mysteries are really good with a hot drink and a shirt. Question 8 is, what is your guilty pleasure book? I read a lot of romance novels. I think the Bridgerton series was a guilty pleasure book series for me because I think it's a very well thought out series. And while I think some parts of it were fairly well done, there are also other parts of the series which were extremely cheesy, maybe weren't thought out so well. I think it's a very good series, and I you know, I think it's good enough for there to be a reason why it has been picked up and turned into a show now. But I don't think it's the most amazingly written romance series I've ever read. And I think some of the things are kind of historically inaccurate, but it's so entertaining, man. I read like the first two and last year, and then I ended up borrowing the last six in like a month from my best friend, and I blew through those puppies. And they're very readable, and I'm a little guilty at how readable they were. Yeah. Question 9 is a favorite dessert and a book that reminds you of that dessert. So, man, I guess because we've been eating a lot of it recently, one of my favorite desserts is pumpkin pie. I love, like, Thanksgiving and Christmas for the food. Like, there's other things that I love about, like, the holiday season, but I love those holidays for the food, for this, like, large chunk of it, because it usually centers around pumpkin-y things, spice-y things, not like spicy, but like spice-y, spice-filled things. Anyway, yeah, so we're gonna go with pumpkin pie. Let me see. The book that reminds me of it, the only one that's really coming to mind is like Pumpkinheads, which is a graphic novel by Faith Erin Hicks and Rainbow Rowell. And I just talked about it in like my October wrap up, I think. Did I talk about it? Or did I read that in September? I actually think I read that in September. Damn. It perfectly encapsulates the fall season, and pumpkins feature heavily, so yeah. And the last question is number 10, are you a procrastinator? If so, what book have you been procrastinating reading? I am very much a procrastinator. I procrastinate in every facet of my life, and have for as long as I can remember. Yeah. So, books that I have been procrastinating reading is most of them. I just seem to keep accumulating things, so then I kind of read those and don't read the things that I had before, which is a real problem, and why I'm on a book buying ban now. The one that I have really been procrastinating for the longest time, minus The Count, which I've read this year and checked off my little book bucket list, it's Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. I have been wanting to read that book for years. Years and years. I have basically been wanting to read it since I both watched the Wishbone episode of it. I know, I'm fucking millennial, I'm gonna talk about Wishbone again, I have a problem. When my aunt rented The Man of La Mancha, and we watched it together, and I fell in love with the music and the story and everything, and yeah, I've basically been wanting to read this book for a very long time, and I've just never gotten around to it because I'm a little bit intimidated of it. It's fairly thick. It is not as thick as The Count of Monte Cristo, so I don't know why I'm still intimidated by it. I think part of it has to do with the way it looks like it's written in the translation that I own of it, which is potentially maybe the wrong translation for me to go with. It's an older one, because my copy is older. I think my copy's from like the 30s or something, so yeah, I'm not sure if it will be the most entertaining translation of the work. And I'm also honestly a little concerned that I've been hyping it up too much in my head for all of these years, because of that episode and because of Man of La Mancha, and I'm thinking this is going to be absolutely amazing, and I'm really afraid that it's going to be quite terrible or very boring, so yeah, really procrastinating on it. But I tackled the other behemoth of my life this year, I'm fairly certain I can make time to tackle Don Quixote next year. Hopefully. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for always watching. If you are new here, thank you for subscribing. If you would like to subscribe, please do so. I feel really uncomfortable about tagging people in anything because it's just anxiety. If you are interested in this tag, if you would like to give it a try, please consider yourself tagged. You will see the links, like I said, in the description box below where I will put them, and yeah. Please also, when you're looking in the description box below, check out the section under helpful links for various causes and charities and things down below, because it is the Prime Giving season. And yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you are having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.